Several years ago, a documentary movie on Islamic terrorism, Obesssion, was completed and released. Now a major push has begun to distribute millions of copies of the film in the United States, and accusations are being heard, according to which the film is being given mass distribution because of the elections, and that the movie is meant to strengthen the McCain campaign. Shalom to Wayne Kopping, director and editor of Obesssion.
Hi, how you doing?
So tell us about your film, Obesssion.
Sure. Obesssion we made a couple of years ago to explain the radical Islamic terrorist threat. This was at a time when we were seeing bombs that were going off in London and in Spain, and of course 9/11, and people weren't exactly sure what these attacks were about. And what we show in Obesssion is that these are not just separate attacks, but rather separate fronts, different fronts on this global jihad that was happening against Western countries and non-Muslim countries. And so we seek to put into some sort of macro perspective so people can understand.
What efforts have been made to get your movie to a wider audience?
At the time that it came out, it was actually very favorably reviewed by CNN. Fox News picked it up and made an entire special around the film, which they screened 10 times, and it was broadcast on their satellite network across the globe. And there were, of course, organizations and individuals that set up their own screenings, be it at schools, college campuses, synagogues, churches, and it was anyone that understood the nature and gravity of the film recognized that Obesssion educated people in an hour unlike anything else ever had up until that time.
Now tell us about your latest distribution efforts with 28 million free copies to the public.
This is at a time when it was September 11th anniversary. Around about that time, we were always endeavoring to have some sort of release around about that time of 9/11. And we have donors that had this idea that we should get this out to as wide an audience as possible. And we used those funds in the most effective way that we thought, and that led eventually to, as you mentioned, 28 million copies of the film being put into newspaper subscriptions and people's mailboxes and so on and so forth, just to alert them to this threat.
So how do you respond to accusations your film is being given mass distribution because of the elections, that the movie is meant to strengthen the McCain campaign?
Yeah, it's bizarre. Nowhere in the film, nor in the packaging or the literature that comes with the film, does it mention either candidate. It's completely devoid of any mention of any specific candidate. And people have to realize that this is an issue. The terrorists don't care whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, or from the Green Party, whether you're Jewish, Christian, or Muslim. If you stand against their Islamist goals, you will find yourself at the wrong end of a terror attack. And this is what we're trying to show. And it's quite strange to us that this is being spun the way that it is, but it's not. It shouldn't be too surprising when we know that our detractors cannot fault us on the message of the film. We show what the Islamists say in their own words. You can't fault it, you can't deny it. So the only thing that they can do to defend themselves and to defend the Islamists is to attack the messenger. And that's all they're doing. It's a feeble attempt to attack the messenger so that people do not hear the message. And that's basically what's been happening.
Now, Wayne, do you have any plans for a follow-up film?
Absolutely. We've already had some sneak previews of our follow-up film, and we're about to do a massive launch of our follow-up film, which is called The Third Jihad. And we actually have a website called thethirdjihad.com. And this goes even further, and we say we already know about the terrorist threat because we've all seen Obesssion now and we understand it, but there's also a war that you don't know about. There's a threat you don't know about. And this is what we call a cultural jihad. And this is looking at the infiltration of the Islamists inside the United States of America and also in Europe. And we show how the Islamists don't necessarily only need to use bombs to weaken us, but they can also use our own laws and systems against us as well. And the Islamists are taking advantage of the most, of the best part of what makes us in the West who we are, and that is our freedom, our tolerance, and they're turning that around and using it against us, and that's what the third jihad shows.
Wayne Kopping, director and editor of Obesssion, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.